Food is a major part of Korean culture, and anyone who's visited Korea before can tell you that. It's not only embedded in their etiquette for eating, but also in their language as well. After the Korean War, food was very scarce, and people were poor. So if you didn't have enough food to survive, well, you weren't doing very well. So a common greeting was 밥 먹었어요? Kind of like, are you eating? Are you doing okay? And if someone had been eating, then they're probably going to be fine. Koreans not only love to eat, they love eating with other people. They love to feed other people too. And they love their food. And if you go to Korea and hang out with Koreans, you're going to eat a lot of Korean food. And etiquette at the table will change depending on who you're eating with, of course. So first, let's talk about how you should behave, what things you should do when you're eating together with people who you're not very close with. First of all, wait to be seated. The oldest person, considered to be the most important person in Korean culture, will sit down first, as well as wait to start eating. Let that oldest person, the most important person, pick up their chopsticks or spoon first before you start eating. Starting to eat before would be a bit rude. Now, if you're a guest, follow what they tell you to do. If they say you sit down first, well then that means you are the most important person to them at that meal, so you sit down first, you start eating first. But if they don't tell you that, then don't assume it. And before you start eating, of course, remember to say 잘 먹겠습니다, literally I will eat well or I will enjoy my food. And after you're done eating, say 잘 먹었습니다, I ate well, or I enjoyed the food. These are very important phrases that you should always say at the beginning and end of any meal with anyone who you're not really close with. And it's pretty much like saying thank you for making or buying the food, and thank you for the food again, I enjoyed it. Another phrase that you can say instead of 잘 먹었습니다 to the person who just bought your meal is 맛있게 먹었습니다, which literally means I ate deliciously, or more naturally, I enjoyed the food. So it's like, hey, thanks for buying me food, I really enjoyed it. Another small thing is don't pick up your rice bowl or soup bowl with your hands and drink it. In Korea, you leave it down in front of you at the table and you'll eat with your spoon. Another thing, and this might not be apparent, but don't blow your nose at the table. Now, blowing your nose in Korea is kind of like farting in American culture. Everyone does it, but you do it away from the table. So if you have to go blow your nose, go blow your nose. Don't do it while you're at the table. Another thing is if you have to cough or sneeze at the table. You don't have to leave the table to do that, but you do not want to cough or sneeze directly over the food, obviously. So you do want to try to look away, get a handkerchief, and cough or sneeze off to the side of the table, and then go back to eating. Another thing is after the meal, if you're going to use a toothpick, use the toothpick while covering your mouth, and this is just considered more polite instead of showing off the insides of your mouth when you're picking your teeth. Something about eating though is people will tend to eat at different speeds, but when you're eating a meal with other people in Korea, try to match your speed with the other person or other people that you're with. So don't eat too fast or too slow. In Korean culture, people don't like to eat with someone else watching them, with someone else kind of staring down their shoulder. So Koreans will often, even if they're just eating a snack, they'll share it with anyone who's sitting next to them and watching them, because they don't want to feel like they're the only one eating and someone is just staring at them while they're eating. So slow down or speed up and it'll be more comfortable for everyone. Oh, and about eating, feel free to eat as much as you want. Eat a lot. And if someone cooks for you, eat even more. They will like it. Of course, if you don't like it, you don't have to eat a lot of food, but if you do like it, don't feel like you shouldn't eat very much to be polite. No, eat a lot to be polite. They'll like it. Let's talk about side dishes for a second. Many Korean meals, at least traditional Korean meals, are served where you have one main dish that everyone shares together and a bunch of sides that everyone shares. This is kind of changing though with some restaurants and some dishes. So some people these days are preferring to eat where they don't have to share as many things with other people, but keep in mind that most places you'll still share everything with the people at your table. Not all items though are served this way. Of course, if you go to a restaurant and order a hamburger in Korea, they're not going to give you one big hamburger that you share with everyone else. You'll still get your own plate, but most meals are served separately like that. Let's talk about drinks now. If you want to impress your host, pour drinks for the other people. You can do this once before the meal starts, quickly fill up all the cups, and once you've sat down and started eating, pour drinks for people around you using 2 hands. Now, when you're doing this, they're going to pick up their cup with 2 hands and hold it as you pour. This is very polite. So if you're sitting down and the person next to you, their cup is half full or maybe half empty, however you want to look at it, fill up their drink for them. Trust me, they will like it. It'll score you big points. Now, if you are offered a drink by one of your friends and you really don't want it, you can refuse, but as a personal recommendation, I would say give a reason if you're going to refuse. Don't just say no, but tell them why you don't want to. Maybe you're allergic or you can't because of your health or whatever reason. Koreans don't mind though, and you're not going to offend them by not accepting a drink. Going back to setting up the drinks, if you want to be even more polite, you want all of the bonus points, be the person who sets out the napkins and spoons and chopsticks at each person's place when you're getting started. Now, this is very easy to do because everything's right there on the table. You just grab a big handful of each, put them all down really quick. It takes less than a minute, but they will love you for it. About chopsticks though, don't play with them. Don't hold them around when you're talking. Of course, don't use them to point at people. And something you probably have already heard before, but don't just stick them upright in a bowl of rice. That's something that Koreans only do when giving a Buddhist offering for deceased relatives. So don't do that. Just use your chopsticks for eating and you'll be perfectly fine. Okay, here's one that you might not know. Offer to pay. Now, you might be thinking, but I don't want to pay. If a host invites you to eat something, they're not going to ever let the guest pay for it. But just offering to pay shows that you care that they're spending their money on you, and it's very polite. It'll score you major points. However, do not do this if you're going to eat with your friends. They will gladly say, "Great, thanks," or "Yeah, I'll buy you the dessert," which will be like a $2 ice cream cone afterward. So only do this with friends if you really intend to be able to pay. On the topic of offering to do things, if you're going out to eat meat, offer to cook for everyone. Only do this, of course, if you know how to cook meat. Don't just offer to do it for fun and ruin all of the Korean meat. But if you know how to do it, offer, and they'll really appreciate that as well. Okay, we're done with the eating etiquette, but there's still one more really important table etiquette that I think doesn't get discussed very much, and that is talking, having a conversation at the table. Let the other people who you're with lead the conversation. Now, this is my personal tip. They're going to ask you plenty of questions. You're still going to be able to talk a lot, but don't feel like you have to be the one to keep a conversation going or keep a conversation interesting. So don't feel like you have to keep everyone talking about something all the time. Sometimes they just want to relax and eat. But everything we've talked about so far has been when you're eating with people who you're not very close with, so not your closest friends. If you are going out to eat with your closest friends, of course, some of these rules just go out the window. In that case, if you're eating with your friends, I would say just follow whatever your friends are doing. But even when you're with your closest friends, there are still some phrases I recommend keeping. Of course, you can remove the yo depending on how you're speaking with them. 잘 먹을게요. I will eat well, so this is 잘 먹겠습니다 for your friends, and 잘 먹었어요, which is the 잘 먹었습니다 with your friends. I still recommend using these because they'll be polite and they're just very common. Using them doesn't mean you're being overly polite, they're just appropriate for starting and ending a meal in Korean. All right, is there anything else about eating in Korea that I missed or anything that you'd like to learn? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching and I'll see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.